What is up, guys? Today's video is a basic rundown on how to play support both flex and main. Now, according to Overwatch League pros, there are only 3 main supports and the rest are flex. The main supports are Mercy, Lucio, and Brigitte. The flex supports are Zenyatta, Moira, Ana, and Baptiste. Similar to my flex tank video, I will be stating a basic philosophy and individually going over every single support and explaining how to play them. More than 90% of people who watch me aren't even subs, so if you aren't, then hit that big red rectangle. Make sure to check out my Quick Guide series playlist to learn other heroes and improve at the game. Also, if you'd like to improve more, then check out my Instagram for quick tips. First off, the philosophy. If you already watched my main and flex tank videos, then you'll already have an idea of how to play support. But if you haven't, I'll explain. Playing support is like how a mom is to her children. You provide all the care and support, meaning heals, stuns, etc., hoping they'll do the same for you in the end. Although, you also have to look out for yourself and watch your surroundings because your team can't always be there to look out for you. Also, supports are the best carry heroes in the current state of Overwatch. Without your supports popping off and doing their job, everything falls apart, and I mean everything. Your game sense needs to be up to par, because playing support doesn't just mean you have to heal your team, it means you need to know when to use various abilities for certain teammates. It means you need to know when you need to be aggro or when you need to hide, and it also means you need to know when you need to or not need to use your ultimate. Let's move on to our first support hero that I'm going to cover, and that hero is Mercy. Mercy is a single target healer with a second chance ability named Resurrection. Mercy pairs best with long-ranged heroes like McCree, Ashe, and Widowmaker. Mercy doesn't have great defensive abilities in terms of damage, but she excels in movement. Guardian Angel is a key ability of Mercy because with it you can avoid CC abilities and ultimates to stay alive longer. Because Mercy is a single target healer, you need to know if Mercy is even the right pick in each game. Comps that consist of ranged/burst damage heroes like Roadhog, Ashe, and Zenyatta is when you consider Mercy, because you're able to value damage over heals in most fights. There are times where Mercy shouldn't be played, and it's when you have a brawler tank because stronger AoE heals are much more needed. Also, other times where Mercy could be played is highly mobile comps like Winston, D.Va, and Hammond comps. Resurrection is a highly controversial ability, but in my opinion, is somewhat a necessary entity for non-pro Overwatch. The basics of res is to go for safe reses unless you're able to get protection, then you should go for risky picks. The final verdict is that Mercy is a single target damage buffing support hero that can fix your team's mistakes with the resurrection ability. Next up, we have Lucio. Lucio is an AoE or area of effect healer that specializes in displacing of positioning. Lucio pairs well with almost anyone but Bastion. You can play Lucio with the dive comp, a rush comp, Hog Zarya, and more. You shouldn't play Lucio with an Arista Sigma comp because your value will decrease. Lucio has the ability to affect both your team and the enemy team's positioning. Let's start with the Speed Aura. The Speed Aura increases you and your team's movement speed in a small circular section. A good way to use this is to engage as a team through a choke point, like Hanamura first point to help better position your team. Secondly, Lucio is able to displace the enemy team with Sound Wave or Boop. A good way to use Boop is to boop an enemy McCree when he stuns one of your teammates to disorientate his aim. Now, Wall Ride is Lucio's bread and butter, because this will separate most Lucios in terms of mechanical skill. Now, in my opinion, a Reddit Lucio, which is a flanking aggressive Lucio that goes for risky plays, is an okay playstyle only if you are communicating with your team on what you're doing. Anyways, the most safe way to not feed with Wall Ride is to just use it to get high ground or when you're coming from spawn. Lastly, let's talk about Sound Barrier. Sound Barrier is a very good ultimate because you're able to nullify many enemy ultimates if you time it correctly. In most scenarios, you want to use it when your team is grabbed or gravitoned or when a Genji blades. The final verdict is that Lucio is an AoE healer that enables, engages, and is able to displace the enemy team. Next up, we have our most beloved character / hero, Brigitte. Brigitte is a do-it-all AoE and single target healer that thrives in close quarter combat and rush style scenarios. Brig pairs well with defensive dive comps, rush comps, and double shield comps. The only time where Brig wouldn't be played is when you want a more complete backline like an Ana and a Moira or a Bab Mercy, etc. Most of Brigitte's kit is CC based, which is why she's hated so much, and she heals her team from it. Any amount of damage Brig deals is outputted into an AoE heal for her team. So make sure when you're dealing damage, you are near your team. Shield Bash is an ability where you need to prioritize tanks and or flankers. Whip Shot should be used to push back anyone. A more skillful way to use Whip Shot is to push back hit scans who are on the high ground. Her ultimate Rally, in my opinion, is more of a pre-fight ultimate to strengthen up your team so when you advance, you're at an advantage. Also, Rally can bait out enemy ultimates, which is really good. A good tip as Brigitte is to pick a teammate to buddy up with. For example, you could buddy up with a Reinhardt to become a mini Reinhardt, or you could buddy up with the Zenyatta to make Zen a literal mini tank. The final verdict is that Brigitte is an AoE healer that helps enables and disables pressure and engagement. Next up, we have Moira. Moira is an elusive healer that deals loads of healing while being able to deal pretty punishing damage. She works best with rush style comps because she prolongs your tank's lifespan. She's weaker in about any other comp, to be honest. Moira isn't incredibly skillful, but that doesn't mean your mechanics need to be there. Moira's primary weapon and her orbs are meant to be used all the time. There should never be a time where you aren't throwing a damage orb or stealing HP from an enemy team. Stay active. To me, when you're playing Moira, you want to deal as much damage as needed to bait out cooldowns on the enemy team. Now, this doesn't mean you should go out and be a DPS Moira, just saying. There isn't much more to say, so the final verdict is that Moira is a high healing output support that also deals substantial amounts of damage while only really working in one type of comp. Next up, we have Zenyatta. Zenyatta is an immobile death machine. He pairs best with Mercy and Baptiste. He also works best with double shield comps and traditional dive comps. Now, playing Zenyatta in a dive comp is not that easy. You need to have your team always peel for you and communicate almost everything in each team fight. To piggyback off of that, because Zenyatta is very immobile and squishy, you need, and I mean you need, to always play in areas where you can hide and or deal more effective damage. Unless, for some reason, you're playing with the Lucio, you're able to be less strategic about your positioning. Discord is the ability where Zenyatta can select a single enemy to have an effect on them that makes them die faster. Discord, for the most part, should be used on bulky targets and or a target your team wants to kill at the same time. Transcendence is his ultimate, and it does massive amounts of healing per second and makes Zenyatta himself immortal. Transcendence does not work against self-destruct and Deadeye, for examples. Also, if you're not dealing damage, then you should prioritize shooting shields. Lastly, Zenyatta's damage is very strong, but because you aren't the designated damage dealer, you should focus targets your DPS are shooting so you can lay down extra damage. The final verdict is that Zenyatta is a backline Gatling gun that can make you scared to peek any corners. Next up, we have Baptiste. Baptiste is a high skill AoE based healer that is able to deal loads of damage. He pairs best with Mercy, Zenyatta, Ana, and Brigitte. The best comps to play with the Baptiste are Rush and Double Shield. Baptiste is able to have a high healing output if your team positions themselves correctly. Playing somewhat bunched up helps you build up your ultimate. It makes your team fights have a higher chance to last longer. Immortality Field is arguably the top 3 in terms of all abilities in Overwatch. You're able to grant immortality to almost anyone inside a small radius under a drone. It works best against Self-Destruct, Graviton Surge, Reptire, and many more. Now, his ultimate Amplification Matrix allows you to deal 50% more damage from a window-shaped field. Only projectiles benefit from his ultimate, so if you're using Zarya's primary weapon, which is her beam, you're out of luck. A good tip of Baptiste is to utilize his super jump as much as possible to avoid taking any damage. Now, if they're playing snipers, then you probably shouldn't do that. Same as Zenyatta, you should prioritize low HP targets and shields to increase your value. The final verdict is that Baptiste is really good at close quarters massive burst heals and high damage amplification / output. Lastly, we have Ana. Ana is a high-skill, immobile healer sniper that specializes in punishing bad positioning in a skillful way. She pairs with every support if we're honest, but the absolute best matchup is Lucio. She plays best in rush comps, double shield, and hog Zarya. Similar to Zenyatta, because Ana is immobile, you need to keep your distance and use the environment as your extra protection. Her anti-nade is an amazing ability that benefits your team while simultaneously hurting the enemy team. Hitting an enemy with this negates any healing to be added onto them. Hitting your team with this increases the healing per second from all healing types, so if you throw her down a nade, your Lucio heals faster, your Mercy could heal faster, and on and on. Sleep Dart is one of the most skillful abilities in the game, and it stuns an enemy to the ground for 5 seconds. It also is great at stopping ultimates like Dragon Blade, Tactical Visor, Primal Rage, and more. Now, Ana deals 70 damage per shot, which means she's able to be an extra DPS like Zenyatta and Baptiste. Once again, this does not mean it's okay to be a DPS Ana, just like Moira and Zenyatta and every other support. I want to touch on the fact that she's a sniper. Ana's weapon is both hit scan and projectile. When you're shooting from the hip, it's projectile, but when you scope in, it's hit scan. Because of this, you should be scoped in for the most part when you're mid to long range. Nano Boost is also a really good ultimate that makes anyone on your team deal more damage and have damage reduction. Another thing is that upon activation, it instantly grants 300 HP. So for example, if your Reinhardt is 200 HP and you nano him, he is full HP. The best combos with Nano Boost is Genji, Reaper, Roadhog, and more. Now, there are moments where Nano Boost can be used for saving lives and making plays, like Nano Boosting your Mercy so she can res someone safely. The final verdict is that Ana is a skillful healer that looks easy to dominate but can reciprocate that right back at you. Anyways guys, if you enjoyed the video, then leave a like and make sure to subscribe. If you want to see a specific hero guide, then check out my quick guide series or comment who you would like to see below. Don't forget, stay grinding, never give up, and take care.